We're going to dive into it today, and it's very important that you know these because your Dun& Bradstreet credit report and your scores, many of which we'll be talking about today, affect your ability to do a lot of things. Affect your ability, of course, to get business loans, to get business credit lines, to get business credit cards. They affect whether you'll get approved or denied. They affect whether or not how much you'll get approved for, even the rates and terms that you'll pay. But it goes just beyond lending. Your business credit reports and scores with Dun & Bradstreet also affect your ability to get insurance, amongst many other things that are necessary for your business. So today we're going to dive into 5 different aspects of these business credit reports you really should know about. Basically, this is like a deeper dive into the actual scores that you will find on these credit reports. Most importantly, how these scores are calculated, and exactly what you can do to legally and ethically manipulate the scores in your favor to be able to get the best terms on credit financing, best insurance, and everything else that these scores are used for. So let's dive in. So when we talk about Dun & Bradstreet, Dun & Bradstreet is the biggest business credit reporting, they're the biggest credit reporting agency in the world. So what I mean is they're bigger than TransUnion and Equifax and Experian. Anybody that deals with credit reporting, consumer or business, Dun & Bradstreet is gigantic. They are the biggest. Just some interesting things about them. 5 United States presidents have worked for Dun & Bradstreet throughout their history. That's how big the company is. Like, I don't know of any other company that said 5 U.S. presidents worked for them, right? They have like 230 million records on file. What does that mean? I'll give you a comparison. Experian is the next closest one to them. They have like 20 million. So Dun & Bradstreet is like 10 times bigger than the next credit reporting agency to them, which is Experian. And Dun & Bradstreet business credit reports were around way before consumer credit reports. A lot of people are new to the concept of business credit building, but what a lot of don't realize is that business credit building, business credit existed well before consumer credit reporting existed. D&B was around well before the first consumer credit reporting agency ever existed. So D&B is like the gigantic player in the credit reporting game, not just business, but also consumer. Here's why that's important. Because of their longevity, because of their history, they have a really good reputation for predicting risk, right? Ultimately, what they do is they gather massive amounts of data on your business, my business, every business they can get. Then they use this business data that they get to make all kinds of assumptions and calculations, ultimately to help people better predict like their ability to lend to you. Should they lend to you? How much money should they give to you? The rates and terms they'll pay. And they also, like all credit reporting agencies, the primary goal is to gather that data and ultimately sell it. Okay, let's never forget that. TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, it doesn't matter who it is. Every credit reporting's ultimate job is to gather data and then sell that data. Now, sometimes they sell it in the form of scores. Sometimes they sell it just for the purpose of marketing, right? But ultimately, at their core, their goal is to gather data and to be able to basically produce it in a useful way to anybody that will buy that data. Here's why this is important. What I'm saying to you is that anybody that wants to buy that data from Dun & Bradstreet can do so. You see, in the consumer world, we have something called the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And it prevents people from getting our consumer credit reports unless we give them the permission to do so. But in the business world, there is no law. The Fair Credit Reporting Act does not apply to business credit reporting agencies. So what this means is it means anybody that wants to get your data from Dun & Bradstreet can easily do so. They can go pay for your actual business credit report and see everything about the credit of your business. They can go buy the data from Dun & Bradstreet to use for marketing purposes. As a matter of fact, a lot of the marketing solicitations you receive are from people buying the data from a place like Dun & Bradstreet. This is why knowing what we're going to cover today is so crucial, because all this information about your business, your credit scores, your SIC and NAICS codes, how you pay your bills, you manage your bills, all of these things, the accounts that you've been using, the accounts that you've been approved for, denied for, inquiries, all of this is available to anybody that wants it. So by you knowing how this data is calculated, what's on your Dun & Bradstreet credit report, and the 5 most important things that affect that credit report is vital for you to have a good reputation in the world. Potential investors that may want to invest in your company, the people that will ultimately go to buy your business if you ever go to exit, okay, the customers, the prospects, the clients, your competitors, everybody can get this information. So as wildly available as it is, kind of want to make sure that it's a good reflection of you, because it's not just used for lending purposes. It's used by so many different trade organizations, insurance providers, and so many other different types of companies that will use that information to make decisions about you. So this being said, if you're just coming in, give me a shout out. Tell me your company name, and I'll give you a shout out here. And Curtis says, what's the process of updating your NAICS code? You should have been here Tuesday. 2 days ago, you're coming in on YouTube. Go check out our stream from 2 days ago. We actually talked all about NAICS code. The entire stream was about NAICS code. The easiest answer to that, Curtis, is for a NAICS code, you want to update it with the business credit reporting agencies, including Dun & Bradstreet, which we'll talk about today, and the IRS. Those are the basic places you want to start. For a full deep dive of how to choose the right NAICS code, how to make sure you're not high risk, where to go to update it, check out our stream on YouTube from 2 days ago where we covered this exact topic. Okay, so we talked about Dun & Bradstreet. We talked about the importance about it. Let's talk about 5 things that are affecting your Dun & Bradstreet credit report. So first of all, when you pull your business credit reports and pull like a full credit report, what you're going to notice is that there's multiple scores on every report. Experian Commercial, Equifax Business, Dun & Bradstreet, they all have about 5 primary scores you're going to deal with. And so when you pull the report, you want to know what's affecting the report. It's ultimately these 5 scores. So let's dive in and give you the basic rundown of each one of them. The first is one you're probably familiar with. It's called the Dun & Bradstreet Paydex score. Now, this is that main credit score used in the business world, period. It is used more than any other score from Experian, Equifax, or any other score provided by Dun & Bradstreet. Now, you have to be careful even calling this a score. I've had previous employees of Dun & Bradstreet say to me, that's not considered a score. And I show them, I'm like, yeah, they say that it is a score. They even define it this way. But the reason for that is that this score is based on one thing and one thing only. And I'll tell you that in just a moment. But I'll tell you first that the score ranges from 0 to 100, with 100 being the highest score you can get. And a Paydex score of 80 or higher is preferred. Now, what 80 means is that you pay your bills on time. And that's kind of a hint of what the score actually means. The Dun & Bradstreet Paydex score is just a numerical reflection of how you pay your bills on average over the last 12 months. It's as simple as that. They look at all the trade references that report to them, basically credit issuers that give you credit and report your payment history to them. They look at all of those accounts. They average out how you pay your bills over the last 12 months. Then they assign you a score based on that average. It's as simple as that. Really, there's no other factors that tie into it. It's just based on, hey, here's all the payment history we have on you. Here's how you paid the last 12 months. Were you 5 days late on average? Were you 5 days early? Were you on time? Were you 10 days late? Were you 10 days early? That number literally depicts how early, late, or on time you were. As a matter of fact, sometimes when I do webinars, I'll show a breakdown of like every, this score of 80 to 85 means this, and 85 to 90 means this. All it literally means is how you pay your bills. I'll give you an example. If your Dun & Bradstreet Paydex score is 70, that literally means that you are paying on average 30 days late. That's what it means. So if you have a 70 score, you're paying all of your bills. If we looked them all up and how you pay and we averaged it out, you're paying your bills average 30 days late. So the goal of Paydex is to get 80 score or higher, which literally tells lenders you're paying your bills on time. It tells lenders you can expect this person to give you a payment when they are supposed to give you a payment. Now, if you're paying a 90 score or higher, that literally means that the vendor, the lender, whoever's giving you money, can expect that your payment will come early, before the payment terms, before it's basically due. So the Paydex score is one of my favorite scores in the business credit world because it's super easy to control. All we have to do is get accounts that report to Dun & Bradstreet, 3 or more to be issued a Paydex score. And then if we pay those on time or early, that one thing and one thing only will get us good scores. So it gives us the ability to add some vendors to our business credit report, pay them on time or early, and then Dun & Bradstreet reports about a month later, gives us a good score. And then with that good score, we can go get more and more accounts on our business credit reports. So that is exactly what the Paydex score is. Now, I will give you a summary of their other scores by creating 2 buckets. Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, and Experian have 2 buckets of where they basically assign their scores, okay? One is basically what's called a predictive score. And a predictive score brings in all these other factors to predict what they think will happen in the future. Then we have what are called performance scores. Now, performance scores, like the Paydex, are strictly and only based on what has already happened in the past. How have you performed in the past? So the Paydex score is a performance score. It takes no other data into account to predict what may happen. It's only using past data, your payment history, to basically give you a numerical value of how you performed in the past. So the Paydex score is just that. It is a performance score. Now, there is something that's its twin in the other bucket of prediction, and it's called a delinquency predictor score. Now, the delinquency predictor score, much like the Paydex score, is used to evaluate the likelihood that you will pay that bill on time. But unlike Paydex, that actually looks only at what you did in the past performance, the delinquency predictor score, the second of 5 you should know about with Dun & Bradstreet that affect your report, this actually takes some other factors into account to determine what your actual likelihood of paying your bill in the future is. So a lender can pull your D&B Paydex score and see what you did in the past, and then they can pull your delinquency predictor score from your report, and they can see Dun & Bradstreet's prediction of how you will pay your bills in the future. Now, as you may imagine, D&B predictor score the delinquency predictor takes into account the Paydex score. How did you pay your bills so far in the past? How did the trade vendors that report information to them actually show what happened? Did you pay those bills on time or not? And by the way, Vilna, excuse me, coming in. Hi, Loving Arms Service here. Loving Arms Service. Thank you very much for coming in. And by the way, if you're just coming in, give me your company name and I'll give you a shout out on the stream. Excuse me, I don't usually drink water when I'm live, but I've got a little bit of a cold or something weird going on. That's giving me like the scratchiness in my throat. So if you see me take a swig, I'm not being unprofessional. I don't hate to say under the weather because I never even get sick. Something weird going on. So delinquency predictor takes into account past payment data to predict what will happen in the future. It also takes some other things into account as well. It takes into account your financial data. So it takes into account, like, do they know your revenue and do they know your profits? So a lot of people don't realize this, but if you have tax returns that show some kind of profit, you can supply those financials to Dun & Bradstreet, and it will actually help the score if those financials are positive. And you can even pull your business credit reports, and you can see if you pull your extensive one from Dun & Bradstreet, they'll show you the revenue and the actual profits that the business is generating. If the business is healthy, then obviously you're going to have a better score. Now, if Dun & Bradstreet does not have your financial data, they will surprisingly and shockingly, and if you know the answer to this, I'm actually going to let you chime in and tell me if you know the answer. If they do not have your financial data, like your tax returns, what do you think they feel is the most important factor to determine the financial health of the business in lieu of your financials? Just go ahead, just take a shot. Just give me a guess here in the chat and let me know. If they don't have your tax returns, your financials, what do you think the D&B would logically choose as the biggest financial predictor of your financial health? And you can answer that while I'm saying hello to Shandi from Dream 12 Properties in Columbia, South Carolina. Thank you for coming in. Nobody even wants to take a guess at this in the chat. Very disappointed at everybody not taking a guess. It is a shocking and surprising thing. It actually is the number of employees that you have. I don't know why, but Dun & Bradstreet feels that if they don't have your financials, your revenue, and your profit, they're going to lean on the number of employees your companies have to determine the health of your business financially. Now, basically what I mean is like a solopreneur, if you're a one-person organization, they're not going to show you a really good score here. They're going to see that you're higher risk because you have very few, if any, employees. And as you gain more and more and more employees, then what happens is they consider you to be a greater or a less of a financial risk. So when you file those annual reports with your Secretary of State, know without a doubt that the number of employees you're telling the Secretary of State you have will affect your business credit scores, especially this delinquency predictor with Dun & Bradstreet. And Shandi says industry size. I love that Shandi said this. It's a great guess, Shandi, because industry matters more than you think it will. And we're going to be covering one of these 5 factors that affect your D&B reports that really is completely based on industry in just a moment. So it really comes down to the number of employees that you actually have. So they're going to take that into account as well. They're also going to take into account basically public records. Now, public records on business credit reports are different than consumer credit reports. Why? Because we take into account lawsuits. So we expect businesses to sue and get sued. And that actually factors in here as well. So have you been sued? Are you being sued? That actually shows in the public record section of your business credit report. So do other things as well that you would expect. Tax liens, bankruptcies, judgments. So all of those things that may be on your report are also taken into account to determine the delinquency predictor score. We're also looking at other things as well, including, as I said, payment history, including things like what they call your firmographic information. Now, firmographic information from Experian, Equifax, and D&B is basically demographic information. It's just their fancy way of calling demographic information. So, for example, to Shandi's point, what industry are you in? Shandi's talking about industry size, but the industry that you're actually in. So what industry are you in? What is your NIAX code, for example? Okay, when was the business formed? How long has your business been around? Those type of things are actual factors into your delinquency predictor. Of course, a business that's in a low-risk industry and been around longer is less of a risk and therefore has a better delinquency predictor score than one that doesn't have those things. The other thing is there any UCC filings? Do you have outstanding debt out there that you have liens against assets that you own? The other thing is like, what is your overall utilization? Do you carry balances on the current accounts that you have reporting to them? These are the main factors that will tie into delinquency predictor. So if we look at these, a summary, we look at how you paid your bills. We look at what public records do you have on there? What is the details about your business? What industry are you in? How long have you actually been open for? Do you have liens against other assets? How are you keeping balances on the amount that you're borrowing? Are you utilizing? Are you overutilized? Do you keep high utilization ratios? So these are all factors that tie in to Dun & Bradstreet's delinquency predictor score, which basically, again, is going to predict the likelihood that you are actually going to go delinquent. Now, we also have what we call the financial stress percentile. And this one, Shandi, is especially for you. Before we get into those, Lance says, hey, thanks for the info you're sharing. Never applied for or bought anything on credit. Yet my credit is at a 524 across the board. Will you list credit cards banks to apply to? They'll accept me. So first of all, anybody will accept you if you build your business credit profile the right way. It's just a matter of the order that you apply for. And Lance, great question. So what I mean by that, Lance, is that if you want to go get a Bank of America credit card without a personal guarantee that's attached to your business, not you, you can get one. But you're not going to get it till you have 14, 15 accounts on your business credit reports. So if you want to start, Lance, I'm going to do two things for you. First of all, I'm just going to throw up a quick guide you can grab at creditsuite.com/EIN. You can also scan this QR code. This guide will give you the steps of building business credit and a lot of sources that will approve you in every step, because that's a pretty deep discussion to go through here when we're on the topic of D&B. But I will tell you, you want to try some like a Uline and Granger are some great accounts that you can get at the very beginning who will approve you. And then they'll report to Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax, Experian. And when they start to report one account with Experian or Equifax or 3 accounts with Dun & Bradstreet, then that will give you a credit profile. That will give you a credit score. And Lance, once you have that, you can then start to get credit at every major retailer, Staples, Office Depot, Home Depot, Lowe's, Sam's Club, Costco, even Macy's, Nordstrom, Best Buy, John Deere. You get it. Almost every major retailer offers this. You can start to get fuel cards at every major fuel station for repair, maintenance, fuel vehicles. And then when you get about 14 accounts on those business credit reports, then you can get Visa cards, MasterCards, American Express cards, auto financing, all without a personal guarantee credit check. This guide at creditsuite.com/EIN will give you the step-by-step to actually go and do that. And then when you get to 14 plus accounts, Lance, almost any credit issuer will then give you credit cards in the business name that's not linked to you. Basically, credit you can get without the personal guarantee. Okay, back to Shani, because she's been waiting here. Financial stress percentile. So the financial stress percentile is the third of 5 factors affecting your Dun & Bradstreet credit report. And this is basically a percentile of where you rank against other businesses in your same industry. So the bureaus offer what's called comparison scores. And comparison scores from the business credit reporting agencies basically compare your business to other people in your same industry. It's a way of them saying, okay, look, if I want to lend to a restaurant, I already know a restaurant is more risky than another business. Restaurants are high risk because they have a higher default rate than other type of industries. So if I lend to restaurants, if that's my specialty, I already know that. I already know they're higher risk than other industries. I don't need you, Dun & Bradstreet, to tell me they're high risk because they're a restaurant. I already know they're high risk as a restaurant, and I lend to restaurants, so I'm okay with that. But what I want to know, Dun & Bradstreet, is I want to know how high of a risk is that restaurant compared to other restaurants, compared to other people in their industry. So this is really good for lenders and credit issuers that prefer to lend to specific industries for them to see where the business stacks up against others in their industry. And so what happens is we put it into these percentiles. We say, hey, they're in the top 10% or the bottom 10% or the middle or the top 50% or the top 75%. So that's what a percentile is. Like when we talk about risk of this business, how high or low of a risk are they compared to other businesses in the same industry? So whenever you pull a credit report for your business and you see a percentile score, the percentile just means this is where the business stacks up to others in the same industry. Now, a lot of these scores offer percentile variance. So you could find a delinquency predictor percentile. So you can see exactly the score we just talked about, but where are you in percentile of risk to others in your same industry? Now, the financial stress percentile specifically has to do with your risk of closing your doors, ceasing operations, going bankrupt. However you want to define it, your business failed. And when we look at financial stress percentile, we're looking at what's the risk of your business failing compared to the risk of other businesses in your same industry failing. Now, what are they using to calculate this? Very similar things as what we talked about with a delinquency predictor. How have you paid your previous bills? What do you have regarding public records on your business credit report? Do you have UCC filings? How do you utilize your credit? How many DBT, days beyond terms, are you on all of your accounts, on individual accounts? Okay, they're taking into account your financial data, the number of employees you have, your industry or the risk of your industry, which of course is already in this percentile, so not a factor in the percentile part of the score. But again, all of these other factors we talked about with the delinquency predictor are used to determine the financial stress or health of your business, and then we put it into a percentile form to compare you to others in your same industry. Now, that brings me to number 4, which ties in really close with number 3. The number 4th factor affecting that Dun & Bradstreet credit score or profile is the financial stress score. So the financial stress score literally depicts your exact risk of going bankrupt, closing your doors, ceasing operations. You're done, right? Forking, you're done, business closed. So the financial stress score actually predicts the likelihood that your business is going to fail. Okay, that's what it's actually predicting. And it's looking at all businesses in the world and saying, hey, here's the real number. This number reflects your risk of completely failing. Your business is shutting its doors. Then we look at what we just talked about. The financial stress percentile is the risk of you failing within your industry. What is your risk compared to others in your industry? The financial stress score just is your overall risk of shutting your doors, ceasing operations. And once again, it's using the same data to calculate that score. What is your past payment history? How many days beyond terms are you on individual accounts and overall? What kind of collections do you have? Judgments, public records, tax liens. You owe people money. Have they collected on you, for example? What is your utilization? What kind of balances do you keep in regards to your actual limit on the accounts? Do you have UCC filings? Okay, what industry are you in? And is that industry high risk or not? Those are all used to determine the financial stress score. So if I'm going to tell you of the 5 factors that affect your Dun & Bradstreet credit report the most, I'll tell you number 1 and 2. Number 1, your Paydex score. It's the most important. Number 2 is the financial stress score. The Paydex score is looked at to see how you pay your bills. And the financial stress score is saying, Dun & Bradstreet, given all the information you have on this business, what is the likelihood that the business is going to fail? Those are the 2 scores, the 2 of these 5 that lenders absolutely care about the most. Now, we get to number 5. things that will affect your business credit reports with Dun & Bradstreet, and it is called a SIR rating. It's called a Supplier Evaluation Risk Score. Now, the SIR score basically has to do with it's basically meant specifically for suppliers, right? So what we're looking at here, let's think about this from a supplier's perspective. If you're going to go give somebody $10,000 to order stuff from them, supplies, right? Then what we want to do is we want to make sure if I pay that person money, that company's still going to be around to ship the stuff to me, right? That's an example of why a SIR rating exists. Because like you may want to pull the SIR rating on somebody before you send the money. So if I'm creating these mugs, these things right here, okay, and I'm gonna do like a free promotion of Credit Suite here. If I'm presenting these, if I'm making these, and I get these caps from a manufacturer, and I'm gonna order 10,000 of these caps from a manufacturer, right? Or then what I want to know is like if I'm going to give them a bunch of money for these, let's say I'm paying $2 a cap. And my wholesale, I'm paying them $20,000 to ship me 10,000 of these guys, right? Well, then I want to make sure that if I give them 20 grand of my money, that they don't go bankrupt to keep my money. They actually send me my caps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a SIR rating on this company, and I'm going to get a good idea of like how likely are they to actually deliver the thing that I'm ordering, paying for. If their SIR rating's in the toilet, then I know they're probably financially stressed, and I might not want to do business with them because I might buy 10,000 of these caps and they may go defunct to keep my money and they ride off into the sunset and I never get anything from them. So the SIR rating is designed to help us protect from that thing happening. It's for us to be able to deal with suppliers, or maybe we are a supplier and our customers are using this to evaluate us, but it's used to evaluate like basically the likelihood that this company's still going to be around, that they're not going to go seek relief from creditors and not be able to deliver upon what they're expected to deliver upon. So for us, if we're ordering from a supplier, the SIR rating is important for us to know we're sending money to somebody credible that's not in financial trouble. And if we are the supplier, well, the SIR rating is important because it's telling the person buying from us that we are stable and that we are not likely to go out of business. So the SIR rating is calculated very similar things as the other the other three that we've talked about today, right? So it takes into account your payment history, like your Paydex score does. Takes into account your utilization, the industry that you're actually in. Takes into account your DBT, your days beyond terms. How often or how are you paying your bills? Takes into account, do you have any collections? How recent are those collections? How's your financials? Do you give them tax returns? How many employees does your actual company have? Do you have UCC filings? Do you have bankruptcies, judgments, tax liens? Do you have lawsuits open against you? Takes into account all of these things to determine what that score actually is. Now, Lance has said, hey, thanks for info. Okay, so Lance was talking about a 524 credit score across the board. I think Lance is saying. And Lance, in that case, then what you probably want to do is start building business credit. Because remember, business credit doesn't look at personal credit whatsoever. When it comes to business credit scores at that level, you're really going to struggle. The only ones you're going to get are secured business credit cards. You're better off to get a subprime personal credit score if your score is like in the low 500s. So I'd work on improving the personal credit, and I'd also kind of work on abandoning the personal credit and moving to business credit. Here's what I mean by that, Lance. It's going to take you to get from a low 500 score to a 650, like a lot of business credit card issuers want to get to. It can take you months to get there. But in the same time frame, you could build business credit, which doesn't even look at your personal credit scores, and you could get there very quick. Our clients are getting Visa, MasterCards, auto financing, Amex type credit cards 4 months into the business credit building process with $20,000 limits or higher. So if I were you and somebody comes to me and I have low personal credit scores, I'm going to work on fixing my personal credit because there's not any good business credit cards out there for low 500 scores. Then I'm going to start building my business credit because I can build my business credit where the credit issuers don't even look at my personal credit quality, like I'm starting over. And then I can start to get credit with business credit card issuers just in my business name without a personal credit check. So Lance, hopefully that answers your questions. Again, creditsuite.com/EIN is a step-by-step guide to be able to do that. So those are the 5 most important factors affecting your Dun & Bradstreet credit report. In summary, number 1, your Paydex score. It's how you pay your bills, right? If we pay our bills on time or early, we have a good score. It's the #1 score used in the business credit scoring world. The second most important of the 5 is the financial stress score. How likely are we to go out of business, right? And it takes all these other things that we talked about today into determination. The third is the financial stress percentile. How likely is our business to go out of business compared to other people in our industry? Okay, the fourth is the delinquency predictor, much like the Paydex score, but we're using these other factors we talked about today to calculate the likelihood to predict our likelihood of actually going late. And number 5 is our SIR rating. It only matters if we are a supplier supplying stuff or we're using it to pull a supplier's information. And it's just the likelihood that that supplier is not going to go out of business and we're going to pay them a bunch of money and never get our stuff. Or we're the supplier and it's the likelihood that somebody else is going to give us their money and then they're never going to get their stuff. This is why controlling your business credit reports and scores are so important. Because lenders, credit issuers, like in this case, suppliers, the people doing business with you are looking at these to make decisions on whether they should do business with you. I'll give you an example. One of our clients is an over-the-road trucker. And one of the most interesting things she said in her testimonial to us is she said, look, excuse me, like I said, the cold or something weird going on today. She said, look, she goes, I got more customers as I built my business credit. And the reason for that is she's a trucker. So what happened was these truckers that actually give her contracts are pulling her business credit reports to determine how good of a business she actually is. Excuse me. Probably should have had somebody else do the stream for me, but I thought I would power through. Okay, being the guy that I am. Okay, so again, in her world, what was interesting was that she was getting all these trucking contracts more rolling into her because she built her business credit. All these people, and she didn't even realize that before. She's like, I'm struggling to get these contracts for my trucking company. She built her business credit and they started rolling in because others were using her business credit reports to determine if they should do business with her. Once her credit report was established, the answer was yes, they wanted to, and she got more customers as a result. So never forget these things. You're going to get better insurance. You're going to get better loans. You're going to get better credit cards. You're going to get more customers, right? You're going to attract more investors and people that want to invest and buy into your business just by controlling these 5 factors that affect your Dun & Bradstreet credit report. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Remember right here, grab this really cool guide on how to build your business credit at creditsuite.com/EIN. This talks to you more about business credit scores. It also maps out the exact steps you can take to build business credit to be able to get good scores, then use that credit profile and score basically for your business to fund itself, where personal credit doesn't matter, cash flow doesn't matter, and collateral doesn't matter as well. So you can scan that or check it out at creditsuite.com/EIN. If you got value from this training, make sure you like and subscribe and keep your eye out for our next training. We're talking about more cool ways to get the money you need to start